Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Book of Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is a special episode of Creators Talk Podcast, a podcast about book conversations with your favorite bookish content creators. This episode is brought to you by Bookem, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookemapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the wonderful Mishayla Twyman. Mishayla is the creator of the Your Local Book Club based in Austin, Texas, which has grown to over 1,500 members. She is also the creator of The Reading Room, a reading collective that helps good books find the right people. She is a reader, a community builder, a marketer, a facilitator, a storyteller, and an Austin, Texas native. Mishayla, welcome to the Creators Talk Podcast.
Awesome. I love the introduction. Thank you so much for
Of
having
course.
me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I do want to start a little bit about the
Yeah.
moments that kind of shaped your life and some of the early books that you enjoyed.
Oh, definitely. I think growing up, my mom always surrounded me with books. One of my core memories is this place called Richie's. No longer open, but it was here in Austin. It was a Black-owned like art, music, and book gallery. They had a sit-down story time for kids, and I just remember loving how there were just shelves and shelves of books filled with characters that look like me. So that really mattered to me at that age, and that was kind of like a core memory that shaped how my relationships with books started. I was also that kid that stayed up late reading under the covers when I was supposed to be asleep, and my mom would literally have to come in and tell me to put the book down and go to bed. So reading was something I always loved, but I'm sure some people can relate somewhere along the way in like grade school and college. It was hard to read for fun.
Yep.
There was a lot of required readings and textbooks to study and essays and deadlines. And so I honestly didn't have time to read. And if I had extra time, I didn't want to spend it reading. It wasn't until the pandemic that I really found my way back to reading. I just had, I think everyone had more time and more quiet. And so the book that got me back into reading was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. It's about a woman who finds herself in this in between space, a library where like every book holds a different version of her life, and it's based on the choices that she could have made. So yeah, that was a really good book. It made me think about regrets and second chances and just like how even the smallest decisions shape us. So that's the book that got me back into reading, and I've been reading ever since.
No, I love to hear it. And that book specifically, I know so many people that it's touched their lives. So it's interesting to see it kind of continue to have that.
So good.
Yeah, it's interesting. What about any books when you're growing up that kind of, you said you read a lot when you were a kid. Was there any books in your childhood that really stick out for you?
I think the one that like the first one that comes to mind is The Giving Tree.
Yeah, as far as
Yeah.
like the reading culture out in Austin, how has that been? Like, what makes that city like a prominent city for reading and building community out there?
Yeah, so I'm like you mentioned, I'm from Austin, and Austin is such a mix of like people that aren't from here. So they're coming from all over. I'd say a majority of our book club members aren't originally from Austin. So there's this shared feeling of just looking for your people. And I'm sure it's something that we can all relate to. So book club has become this natural way of finding connection. I think especially the book club community is so close knit and sometimes a little niche. And so it's nice to be able to walk into a community or into a room and you guys already have something in common. And then also me just being from Austin, I love sharing all of the places and neighborhoods that maybe if you're not from here, you wouldn't have visited. So I think as a reading city, Austin also has so much to offer. There's so many great local libraries, indie bookstores, and lots of events. So it's just really a city that values creativity and connection. And I think that's what made Austin the perfect place to build your local book club.
Yeah, I love that. And what was the origins and how that kind of start with the book club, like day one? What was the thoughts? What went into it for you all to start the book club?
Yeah, so it honestly started super casually. It was just me and one of my best friends wanting to commit to reading more. This was about a few years ago, like October of 2022, right around the time that I was getting back into reading. I had just finished a midnight library, and she had picked up The Silent Patient. Have you heard of that one
Yeah, of
by
course.
Alex? I don't want to butcher his last name. Yeah,
Yeah, some of
but
the
it sounded interesting. Yeah, it sounded interesting. So I was like, okay, bet I'll read it too. We started talking about the book at work, and one of our coworkers was like, wait, can I read it with y'all? So we looped in a couple of other friends, picked a restaurant that we liked, and then said we'd meet in a month to talk about it. And then our first meetup wasn't even officially book club, but we were just being silly and calling it that. But we had such a good time. The conversation was so good. And so we were like, let's do it again next month. And so we picked our next book. We chose I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy as our next read, and posted a few photos and stories on our Instagram from the first meeting on. And then that's kind of when everything changed. Everyone was like DMing us and like, wait, what's this? What book are you guys reading next? Can I come? And that's when I realized that we needed a place to actually organize this. So I created an Instagram page, shared our book of the month and like where we were meeting, and then invited people to join. And then both me and my best friend that had started this with me initially are both in marketing. So we're like, let's have fun with this. Let's like make some graphics and a logo and like make a slogan and a motto. So we kind of just started out like having fun with it, and that was 3 years ago. And now we're just crossed 1,800 members, and so book club looks a lot different than it did 3 years ago. And yeah, it's been really rewarding. I've met a lot of my best friends through the club. And it just started as something small and personal. And over time, it's turned into something that I'm truly committed to. Yeah, and we've just grown into a full on community, and it still blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's so cool how like you start with something small, you get the right people around it, you build the right culture, and then it just expands. The next person kind of leads to
Yeah.
the growing of everything. So when you all were kind of getting started, what was the process of like actually facilitating the conversations? Were you writing out questions beforehand and bringing them there, or how did you kind of let those conversations flow in the beginning stages of the book club?
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning it was a little bit more casual. We were able to just show up somewhere, like maybe it was a park or a coffee shop or a restaurant, and just talk about whatever book we had just read. There was no real structure, and honestly, that was like part of the appeal. We were just showing up and having good conversations. But as the club started growing, I found myself wanting to see our members more often and get more creative with how we gathered. So that's when like some of our monthly meetings, in addition to our monthly meetings, we started hosting like community events. But as for those monthly meetings, just either us reaching out to venues, or sometimes venues will reach out to us like, we want to host you. And then with the discussion questions, I come up with about 15 questions that we'll have on tables just to guide conversation if that's what they want, with an icebreaker, just to kind of get conversation started. So everyone's in their little groups, and then at the end, we'll all come together and kind of bring the conversation as one. I think one big shift that we've had is scale. So now when we're talking to restaurants or venues, we have to say, hey, we might bring in 100 people. Can your team handle that? And so it's pushed me to get a little bit more strategic about where we host and how we structure things. So it still feels like a book club, even though when you walk into a room full of like 99 other people um, who've all read the book. So it's been an interesting just way to scale and still make it feel like a welcoming place. So yeah, it's been cool to see the transition from the five of us to now over 1,800.
Yeah, I love to get into the scale of it. I'm also curious about, so you one of the books you mentioned was Jeanette McCurdy's book. Did you notice that
Mm-hmm.
like when you picked a certain book that it had a bigger turnout, or what made that book specific?
Yeah,
I know it's one of the biggest books that's come out in the last couple years, but was it when you picked the right book,
yeah.
people showed up, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it's really cool because every month we'll read a different genre, and it's cool to see who comes out based on the genre that we pick. So like our summer, we usually do like summer reads and romance, and that has like a super big turnout. January we'll do like self-development books. Everyone loves a self-development book, and thrillers, and so it's cool to see like who comes out based off of what genre that we pick. And sometimes it's also cool to see people that are like, oh, I normally wouldn't read fantasy, but that's the book of the month, so I'm going to challenge myself to read it. So there's definitely different audiences for different genres that we pick that month.
Yeah, was there like a special meeting or moment within the book club where you're like, yeah, something really stuck? Like we're starting to figure out, because I know you do so many things. You're working with local, and
Yeah.
you're working and building in these communities. has helped it grow. So like where there's a moment where you're like, okay, we figured out this plan really well, or a meeting
Mm.
that kind of
Mm.
shaped that for you.
There is actually one moment that stands out. It was about 2 years ago. We had been invited to host a meeting at Soho House here in Austin. That alone was a big deal. It was the first time a venue had actually reached out to us and asked us to bring book club into their space. And they had planned to promote it on their like, own Soho House app, so it was both open to our members and theirs. I remember with our RSVPs, we were like landed at 50 from our side, and I remember showing up the day of the event, going to the front desk and asking like, "Hey, just checking, how many people do we have coming?" And they looked at me and said, "We have about 30 of our members who RSVP too." So now I'm realizing we've got almost 100 people coming to this meeting, and I was like, "Oh, like this is not what I was expecting." So up until then, I hadn't considered the idea of 100 people showing up to talk about a book. And that was when it really hit me that it was no longer just like a fun side thing with friends, that this was a growing community that people actually wanted to be a part of. The event itself went well. And I think what was even cooler is that people that came from the Soho House membership that day are still part of our book club now. So
Cool.
I feel like that was a turning point. And I think from that meeting on, we started to see more and more people not just attend, but stay. So yeah, I remember thinking, oh, I'm like, I have to host all of these people. How are we going to structure it? Like, I think that meeting, we just put a bunch of chairs in a circle because we hadn't like figured out the breaking off
Yeah.
into groups. But yeah, it was a fun one.
Yeah, so we there's this local like what's it called, swap that happens in Denver, Colorado.
Mm,
And one of the things that they said the same thing, right? Like at the beginning, it's kind of starting small, then you have like a viral moment on, from your marketing, and from this point on, there's this big community that's showing up, and now you got to figure out how to facilitate these moments. So like talk a
yeah.
little bit about that. Like what does your day-to-day operations look like for the book club, and how do you engage with your club in between times to keep the
Mhm.
community together?
Yeah, I love the book swap. We actually have a book swap coming up in August. It's such a fun event.
They're always cool.
But yeah, as for day to day, it's honestly something I'm still figuring out. I work a full time 9 to 5, so a lot of book club planning and communication has to happen after hours. But I'm lucky that I have a small team of my best friends who help me um, with all the operations. They've really become just an integral part of the team. So I think with day-to-day engagement, it looks a little bit different. We're always chatting with our community on Instagram, like any of our social channels like TikTok, and responding to DMs and sharing updates there. And then um, we have Geneva, and so we share, and like we'll put in some random questions like what book outside of book club are you reading right now, just to kind of keep the community engaged. And then we also have a monthly newsletter that we'll send out that like will highlight our current book pick or just kind of local brands that we're supporting that month. And I think that's just a good way to keep people plugged in and still keep them interacting with each other outside of those monthly book club meetings.
Yeah, one of the things we talk a lot about on this podcast is like community and how to build it and how to cultivate it, and ultimately just how to foster and continue to bring amazing culture and community. I mean culture within your community. So how do you personally
Mm-hmm.
just define community, and how you think about that part of it?
I think to me, community is about how you show up for the people around you. It's really about being intentional. It's a space where you feel safe and seen and like you belong. And it's also rooted in something that you share. That something can be anything. It could be your neighborhood, your school, your culture, your workplace, your book club. So yeah, for us, it's books. I think a strong book community goes beyond just like reading the same book, but having a space where people feel comfortable showing up who they are, even if they didn't finish the book. That's something that we are very big on. We're like, hey, like if you don't mind spoilers, you can still show up. Like you're still part of the community, and it's really just the energy of being surrounded by people who care about like that in real life connection and conversation. And it doesn't have to be super deep all the time. Sometimes it's just showing up, like you're coming to book club after work, you might not have read the whole thing, but you just want to be around good energy and good people. And I think it's been really, really cool to see this community grow because it goes way beyond book club. You'll like I mentioned earlier, like some of my best friends come from book club. A lot of people show up to book club alone and they don't leave alone. So it's been really, really cool to see those relationships build and maintain and go far beyond book club.
Yeah, talk to us about the because you also do those. It was you did one campaign, I think, when you kind of mixing books with movies and some of those things. So like, how'd you kind of get those going and building in like you do yoga now with your book club and all these things. So what kind of was
Yeah.
all connected into the club community as well?
Yeah, definitely. So like super big on supporting everything local. So of course the venues where we host our book club meetings, but also bringing in vendors and other people and other founders that have their own business. And so we've done a couple of different collaborations. Our last book club meeting, we had someone come in, like a jeweler come in, and she has a charm bar. So you got to pick your charms and put together a bracelet. So we've been adding vendors to our book club meetings just to like add to the experience and then also expose our members to a lot of these local businesses. I think one of my favorite partnerships was with a local photographer. So we did a collaboration with Modern Animal. It's a vet tech company, and they're opening up some offices here in Austin. And so they wanted to tap into some of the bigger communities out here. And so we were trying to get creative with how we could combine books and a vet's office. And so we landed on hiring a pet photographer. So we all brought our dogs and did like author pet portraits with our dogs, which was just as cute as it sounds. So that was like one cool collaboration that we've done. We've done a collaboration with a collage artist. So every January we read a self-development book, and we've had this collage artist come to every one of our meetings, and he'll lead us through a vision board making style class. Yeah, we've had jewelers, we've had a typewriter poet, we've done book club with tattoos, food vendors. Yeah, so all about bringing those local vendors and like founders in front of our community. And I think it's a full circle moment of creating something meaningful and fun while also investing into the local creative scene in Austin.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about like some of the marketing that you talked about. Like what kind of first got you into content creation and kind of how do you think about the social side of your book club? I know you do a lot of in person, but when you think about it from
Mhm.
the online perspective, how do you think about that as well?
Yeah, I mean that's how book club started with us posting on our stories, and word traveled very fast. I think part of my 9 to 5 is doing social media, so sometimes it's hard to keep up with all of the accounts, but um, it's been fun to get like creative with it. So what we'll do is um, create content that meshes the book and like the book cover and the vibe of the book with like the venue that we're hosting at. So our last book for June was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. And we were having our meeting at a pizza shop. So we kind of combined like the look of the book cover with pizza and just kind of got creative with how we were promoting the book and then also promoting the local spot that we were hosting. So for that one, we used a lot of like the book cover colors. We did um, like a sign that kind of looked like the back of a pizza box that just said like don't ask me what page I'm on, just meet me at San Mataro. That's where we had our book club meeting. So really just getting creative with trying to promote the book, not only the book, but also like the venue that we're shooting. Yesterday we had a shoot for the promotion of our summer book swap. So it's been really, really fun to just kind of get creative with it. And I look at it as a way just to get important information to our members because I want them to have enough time to plan and them to want to come and give them all the details that they need to make that happen.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this book club. Is like, I mean, on this podcast, like how what's most personal is most general, right? So like when you bring in those elements of
Yeah.
yourself, it gets transmitted to the other to others in your community. They see what makes
Yeah.
it so personal to you also amplifies there. So I'm just curious to like when you think about like building these communities and growing them, how do you kind of bring yourself into the book club?
I don't know. I kind of take myself, like my personal self, out of it.
Yeah.
Um, I want everyone to feel like the book club is theirs. That's why I named it Your Local Book Club. So really getting creative with using our members and like having them. We've done a couple of videos where our members are like, oh, like, get ready with me to go to book club, and just kind of putting it back on them so that they see themselves in the book clubs and they know that it's very much as I started it, it's very much theirs. And I think that's a common theme that we have with whether that's them voting and picking out what book we read next, or volunteering, or just kind of having their hands in book club and like moderating group discussions. So really trying to put it back on them so that it actually feels like a community that they're building as well, because that's what's happening.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the reading room and how that started and how you incorporate that into the book club as well?
Yeah, starting the reading room honestly has been one of the most exciting parts of my book club journey so far. Earlier this year, NBC News had reached out for a story they were doing on how book clubs have become the new social scene. So they handpicked a couple of clubs across the country, and Your Local Book Club was one of them. So they interviewed me about how it started and like what we do, and why it's grown that the way it has. So once the article went live, we started getting tons of messages from indie and debut authors who wanted to share their books with our community. Um, it was amazing, but I had to get a little bit creative because we have our like main monthly book club and events, so I didn't want to like overwhelm that structure. So I came up with the reading room as like a smaller, more intimate subset of book club. We cap it at 8 people to keep it like super low lift in terms of where we're meeting, and to keep that small like, book club feel and just make it super manageable. So we can meet at a restaurant despite getting a reservation or a coffee shop, and it still feels pretty personal. Um, Members have to apply to be a part of it, and we do a lottery system to select the 8. And then once we select it, they receive the book for free and read it, and then meet up and discuss it. We've been really, really lucky because all of the authors that have sent their books have been open to doing like an author Q&A. So the first week we'll read the book, and then the second one we'll follow up with a live Zoom Q&A with the author. Yeah, and so we had our first round. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, and it went really, really well. We got a lot of good feedback from our members, and then also from the authors. They were just raving about how cool it is to sit down with a group of people that have read their book and
Yep.
um, are just asking about their characters and their process and what inspired them. So it was cool to get that feedback, because a lot of them were saying how hard it is to break in to the publishing world. So they were very, very grateful that we sat down and read their book. And then also it's a really, really cool piece that we get to offer our members, because they're reading a book that they may have never heard of or may have never thought to pick up. And so yeah, it's a really cool initiative. And I mean, we're just getting started, so I have no idea where it's going to head, but I think it's all good things.
No, you're right, because it's so helpful when authors get to, not only get in front of a lot of people, but just like people that are real readers that understand and what they're looking for. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what genres are they usually coming to those like the books that you all are picking for the reading room?
Yeah, I mean, it's all sorts. So, um, our last two books, um, Alive and Beating, and that was more of a fiction book, based on like true stories. And then we did Hush Little Fire.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we get a lot of different books, nonfiction, fiction. And so it's cool because with that application process, like they're looking through the titles and only submitting if that's something that they would be interested in. So
That's cool. And then
yeah.
is their book being like to your larger community after you all read it? Are you saying, hey, this is a book that we just picked for the reading room, and then do the larger community get to find it, or how does that kind of work? Are you like then connecting them to the larger community?
Yeah, so I just recently started the Reading Room Instagram page to kind of promote and highlight what books that have been chosen for the Reading Room. So in that, kind of like cross collaborating and cross promoting. So letting all of our book club members know that this is an initiative that we've started, and then highlighting the authors and helping promote on the Reading Room page. So yeah, definitely a lot of crossover.
No, that makes sense. And then anything else specifically when it comes to book club, like anything advice you'd give to people that want to start a book club? Any like pain points that people are like, hey, I mean, you should say like, hey, look out
Mm,
for this when, especially when you go from this
yeah.
amount of people to the next. Like, what are some of your advice in those areas?
I'm all about people sharing their passions with their community, whether that's books, film, music, matcha. We have a matcha club here in Austin. There's tons of run clubs. I think the stuff that keeps us inspired outside of the day to day is super important. Like I love my 9 to 5, but I also need something that fuels me creatively. And for me, that's been building this book club. So I'd say my biggest piece of advice is just go for it. You might have to get a little creative with how you make it happen, but I think that's part of the fun. Um, yeah, and then when you do, just like make it yours. The best way to find your people is to stay close to what you're passionate about. So and I think if it's rooted in something real, others will feel that, and that's when the right people show up. And I feel like that's why I've been able to create such an amazing community, because I've just stayed true to like my passions and what I believe in. So I think don't overthink it. Just start. I think that's the hardest part is just
Right.
just starting and stay true, and then let it grow from there.
Yeah, actually, I have another question on the book club. Have you thought about like expanding
Yeah.
it? I think a lot of times people always think about like setting up different chapters. I see that happen really quickly. Like, what
Mhm.
has made it so that you've stayed true to Austin first, and or have you even thought about like we would, charter it later down the lines?
I thought about expanding. I actually have one of my friends that's helping me with that. But I want to nail down the structure of book club first. I think I love what we're building here and I would love to bring it to other cities. I want to make sure that it's almost like it's mastered in this way and that I can tell someone, hey, if you want to start your local book club chapter, like this is how to do it, and just give them all the guidance that they need so that they can build a community similar to Austin. So it's definitely coming. Yeah, so I'm hoping sometime soon. I would love like a Your Local Book Club New York or Your Local Book Club Dallas. But yeah, I think I've prioritized the reading room, and I'm hoping with how virtual it is that other groups could join. And then also for our last book club, we opened up like a virtual book club for anyone that wasn't able to come in Austin. So there's also opportunity for people that aren't in Austin to join. So yeah, would love to share the book club with more cities, but
Yeah, it's so
I'll
interesting.
get
Like,
there eventually.
yeah, I was gonna say no. It's so interesting because you got the the Reese Witherspoon and the Oprah book clubs where they know it all comes through like their specific brands and they kind of don't
Right.
do all these different factions. But then I was talking to Dr. Marsha Chatwin. It was a different book, but it was about McDonald's and kind of how
Mm.
they started franchising more in Black communities and kind of
Mm.
stuff that they
Hmm.
did. But it's always so interesting how people think about even when it comes to expansion and thinking about what you may gain, but also kind of what you might lose from kind of keeping that the culture the same. Because every time it expands,
Yeah.
it does change in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I always want to nail down what we're doing here so that it can the same feel can be replicated in other areas.
Perfect. Let's get into to your reading taste. Let us know what's the last book you read. What are you planning on reading next, and what are you currently reading?
So last book I finished was Great Big Beautiful Life, which was our last book club book by Emily Henry. Yeah, it was a good one. There was a lot of mixed opinions in our group. That's usually the case.
I
But
heard.
the last book what'd you say?
I said I heard like people have had most of the time when people read Emily Henry books, they're like, "Oh, it's amazing." This one's been the first one I've heard the
Yeah.
most like more indifferent. Like I don't know if everybody's loved it as much.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's difficult because she has so many good books to
Right.
compare it to. So people are always comparing her to her. But the last book I read outside of book club was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. Um, kind of like Midnight Library vibe, without giving too much away. It plays with time and how the choices we make shape the life we end up living. So very much similar to Midnight Library. I think I'm drawn to stories that make you feel something and leave you with a lesson. So yeah, that was the last book I read. Right now, I need to start reading our current book club pick, which is The Wedding People by Allison Espach.
Okay.
So that's next on my list, and our meeting's in 2 weeks, so I'll be getting into that one soon.
Yeah, so are you mostly a reader, or do you listen to a lot of audiobooks? Kind of how do you do that when you're, getting ready for your clubs as well?
Yeah, it depends. Also depends on the book, but I love a hard copy in my hands. But sometimes if I'm like really trying to finish the book before book club, I've got to put it on 1.5,
Yeah.
2.0 on Audible.
You
But
throw it
I
on.
prefer to sit down and yeah,
I
I
was
prefer to
saying,
sit down and relax while I do it.
sometimes you got to throw on the audiobook
hmm
and finish it right before a workout or
Yep.
something. Yeah, it's like, all right, book club's
Yeah.
in 2 days. We got to knock
That,
this out.
yeah, that 2.0 speed.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. What about as far as like when it comes to great book club discussion picks, like what are some books that you'd say, hey, these are some books that we've had a great conversation around and people should think about picking them as their upcoming books?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, I'm glad my mom died. It was a very, very great pick. Any like Colleen Hoover, Verity, um, what else? I've honest some of my favorite discussions that we've had have been around like our self-development books. So over the past 3 years, I think we did Atomic Habits the first year. Second year we did The Mountain Is You, and then last or this year, January, we did Loud by Drew Afualo. I like having like large book club discussions around self-development because you really get to know that you're the people around you as people and like their experiences, and people feel comfortable opening up and talking about their own experiences and in their day-to-day lives. So I think as for like book clubs, I love self-development.
Yeah, what about just in general, like when it comes to like the books that are, you might have picked one, you're like, I wasn't as good as I thought. Like, what about those type of books that have, how do you all kind of navigate those type of books? Like, sometimes, at least in my experience, you'll read a book and like, dang, this one is not a DNF, but it's tough. And then sometimes those make for
Mm.
like the best conversations too. So I'm curious, like, whenever you've ever picked like a book that a lot of the group didn't like, but the conversations ended up being better because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll say like Loud by Drew Afualo. I don't know. Are you familiar with her?
I know, yeah, I'm familiar.
I think.
It just,
Oh, okay.
yeah, book kind of,
Um, yeah. It came out I think this year or last
yeah.
year. But I think that one in particular, a lot of people went back and forth about like her writing style and like it was a little bit different than what we're used to. So it had some back and forth on that, but it led to good discussion. I think just with the size of our book club, that there's always a lot of different opinions.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
but yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Like even when we pick books, I always take or like with our team as well. Like we always try to
Mhm.
pick like books that are gonna have discussions regardless. Because then you
Yeah.
get a lot of perspectives and then sometimes you get to talk to the author and then they're bringing in things that you didn't see in the book. You're like, okay, I get why you made that decision. It's always interesting to see how that goes. All right, the book that I mean, the way we always end this
Oh,
book.
you heard it.
The way we always end this podcast, you can answer it anytime type you want. It's a two-sided question. What would you like to see more of in the
Mhm.
book world?
Like to see more Indian debut authors brought to the forefront. I think platforms like TikTok and like Bookstagram have done a great job of helping some published authors um, reach a wider audience, but there's still so many incredible voices out there that just don't have the same access or visibility. I think one thing that I always say is like, what if your favorite book is a book that hasn't been published yet? And that's kind of a lot of the intention behind the reading room. There's just so much amazing work being written, and that just it just needs a little bit more support and spotlight. So I
Yeah,
would love to see some creators spotlight more of the those Indian debut authors.
that's well said. And what would you like to see less of in the book world?
Um, I guess kind of on the same line, like as I think there's a lot of like one size fits all storytelling in publishing. Like certain types of stories or voices keep getting pushed because they're safe or trending, and that means a lot of the unique or important stories don't get the same shot. I'd love to see more risks being taken, and just more space for books that feel like new or unexpected, and just get more variety of whose stories are getting told.
Perfect. Thank you again, Mishayla, for being on the podcast. Let us know anywhere, I mean, what's coming up in your world, anything that we should support, or just where we should find you online.
Yeah. Follow our book club page at your local book club ATX on Instagram. If you want to follow along with the reading room, you can follow us on Instagram at join the reading room. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what comes of the reading room. If you're ever in Austin, come check out one of our events. Otherwise, you can just keep up with us online.
Perfect. Thank you, Mishayla. It's been a pleasure. Thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you.